So good morning, sir. My name is Cadet Chris Sharfin. I'm with Cadet Eric Whiteman and Cadets Fred Cooper and Idris Patterson and classes that can be here today. Today we're going to be talking about our Grant Hall model simulation and really the alternative to our original model simulation slide. So here's our agenda. We're going to start with introduction, followed by the system description, go into the data collection and really give you the raw numbers of what we collected from this model simulation. Then we're going to go into the assumptions, the limits and constraints, the model verification and validation, the analysis of the alternative or the alternative that we did pick, and then finally the recommendations and conclusion. So as a background, so really given this current COVID environment, the popularity of Grant has really increased due to the limitations imposed on the cadets, really the cadets, but as well as faculty. So even though there are limitations on cadets in terms of being able to leave posts, there are similarly limitations on the Grant Hall system, really to mitigate the spread of the virus. So the purpose of this study is to determine if Grant Hall can operate in a more efficient manner with the threat of COVID. So two of our primary research questions, the first being, can we develop a plan to minimize the amount of time a customer waits for their food/beverage while maintaining strict COVID ROEs? And second, why is the current wait time as long as it is currently? Next slide. So system description, this just breaks down our entities, activities, resources, controls. As you can see for our entities, we have the customers, the variety of food, variety of drinks. The activities really boils down to each station. So we have the cooking, taking orders, restocking, the refrigerator, grab and go area. For the resources, we have registered, refrigerator, and oven. And then lastly, the controls, we have the hours of operation and the COVID protocol. So here's our entity flow diagram. Nothing really changed from how we had it in the previous deliverables. So everything pretty much stays the same. We start with the line for Grant. There's different areas that each customer can go or entity can go to the pizza/pasta queue, or as I was not the queue, the location. We have the grab and go, we have the deli, and then the line to register. And from the line to register, they can leave Grant. So next slide. So our data collection. So we really utilized two different methods to collect data for this simulation. We did visual observation, which really consisted of us going around and timing the flow of how everyone goes in and out of Grant, how long they stop at each station, etc. And then we had physical records, and these physical records were something that we had collected from the staff that works for the workers at Grant Hall. So as we look at the initial data collection, we had a total of 50 entities go through the Grant Hall system. So breaking it down by each server. So for the pasta server, only 10 out of the 50 customers went to that server with the service wait time of 287.7 seconds, and then a standard deviation of 86.2 seconds. So this is really how we broke it down. As you can see on the, we have the times, the mean and the standard deviation. As you can see, the number of personnel that went through each service line. I won't go too in depth that because I know you can see the numbers on the slide. Next slide. So this really shows our performance measures. And so to really fully understand the simulation, one must analyze the performance measures of each entity within that system. So as you can see, this really breaks down all the raw data within the system, time in the system, time in the queue, number of the system. As you can take a look at this, there's really a lot of good information on this slide. So yeah, this just breaks down all the data that we collected from our original model simulation slide. So our assumptions, we have four really primary assumptions. So the first, once cadets exit the pay station at Grant, they are immediately exiting the system. We assume this because it's a unidirection, meaning they don't just kind of hang out there and disrupt the flow. Our second assumption is cadets are waiting in line to enter the system outside. This is huge because it's going lines with COVID mitigations. Our third assumption, the inflow of customers will be constant throughout the day. So we assume this because in reality, as you see the significance of assumptions, in a perfect world, this could happen, but we have different periods of influx when customers come in, like morning for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we really assume that it was constant throughout the day. And then our last assumption is everyone orders and purchases an item from Grant Hall. This assumption we made because sometimes cadets go through Grant Hall just to kind of window shop. And it was important to make this assumption because if one were to just walk through, disrupt our system. So significance of these assumptions, both these assumptions adhere to the COVID mitigation protocols. So as you can see, by having cadets loiter inside Grant, it begins to crowd the rest of the system, which could be problematic for our data collection. And like I said, the inflow of customers will fluctuate throughout the day based on the whether it be morning for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Next slide.
All right, thanks, Chris. Yeah, so there's a couple of limitations and constraints we analyzed when looking at our model. The first one being randomness, right? For our model and using Pro Model software, we had a constant flow of cadets, right? We had our arrival distribution defined, and that didn't deviate for our entire 15-hour day. So Grant Hall is open for 7 days a week, right? Weekend flow is going to be different than weekday flow, and the flow at an off-peak, timeline, like, let's say 4 o'clock is going to be different than the dinner rush or lunch. And the number of customers arriving is not going to be perfectly modeled when using a consistent, just constant arrival distribution. So that's probably one of the biggest limitations to our model that we were worried about. So varying up that arrival distribution as we progress during the day is something we want to look forward to when tackling potentially down the road this model. So for verification and validation of our model, the biggest thing that we looked at was that, again, that arrival distribution. We tailored that distribution as close as we could to match what we saw going into Grant on a daily basis. If the distribution was too tight, then this led to overcrowding of Grant, and if it was too loose, then it was unrealistic modeling of it. And just to validate this, we checked our distribution with the total number of people that we saw given the timeline when we were in our data collection phase. So alternatives, right? So the 3 alternatives that we had discussed in the previous part of this project was a possible delivery system for Grant. So, kind of lessening the arrival distribution and outsourcing some of that delivery to be at an alternate location. A simplified menu, which we thought might cut down on some of the server times at each one of the servers, giving cadets less options to choose from and making the workers have to work a little bit less, making it easier for them to serve. And a virtual checkout system. What we decided to go with was a virtual checkout system. We thought that this was cost effective. It's kind of reliant on the honor system that's already in place here. And essentially what we're envisioning is an application on a phone for use by faculty and staff, as well as cadets, saying like, hey, you can forgo the checkout register and instead just, enter into this app what you got and you'll be good. That's not saying we're getting rid of the checkout or the register server. We'd keep that available for non-USMA personnel. And what we found with this is that we went from a throughput of about 667 customers in our previous simulation, all the way up to 811, right, with a 90% confidence interval of 807 to 814, right? So this is about 150 more exits per day of operation within the system, as well as our register utilization decreasing down about 60%, which is huge. So we thought that this would be effective because it would only take a small amount of money to develop this app, but the throughput that you're getting, the more customers would make up for it. And we altered our arrival distribution, which again we said was one of the biggest factors, and found that this alternate system handled a tighter arrival distribution better than the previous system as well, meaning it could handle that increased customer throughput on high days. So our recommendation, try and implement this virtual kiosk alternative, right? It kind of negates that bottleneck effect that we were seeing in our previous simulation, and it'll pay for itself essentially very soon. Some of the cons of this is that there's startup costs associated with the app development. I looked on Fiverr.com. It's about anywhere from $300 to about $1,000 to pay someone to develop an app for me. But with 150 people a day going through, you're probably going to pay for that within the first few weeks. And again, there's possibility for stealing, but we're at West Point, so we're relying on the honor system to negate that. So, sir, this concludes our brief. Please feel free to contact myself or Cadet Sharfin if you have any follow-up questions. We appreciate you paying attention to our brief. Thank you.